Hello and a very warm welcome to No One Gets Out of Here Alive. My name is Holly Lyon-Hawk and I will be taking you on a gentle, sometimes humorous and sometimes challenging meander through the myths, beliefs and ideas around all things end of and after life. Each week you will get to hear what various people's random thoughts are on the big question: what is the meaning of life? If you would like to share your thoughts, please send your voice clips in to me via WhatsApp and I'll do my very best to include them. Also each week there will be a section called Give the Flowers Now, which was inspired by my darling maternal grandfather, Roderick George Balcombe, who would say, don't leave it until the funeral to send flowers. Send people flowers now, telling them what they mean to you and how they have touched your lives. And I would love to hear from you. So if you have some flowers that you would like to send someone, please send me your voice clip telling me who it is and how they have touched your lives, along with your name, email address, and the name and home address of the person you are sending your flowers to. For each person who is featured, I will send some beautiful flowers to that person on your behalf. In this series of podcasts, I will be chatting with a whole range of guests, from sound artists, willow weavers, through to end-of-life doulas, and people who have had near-death experiences to help give you a more holistic, rounded view, with just maybe a few new possibilities of how the inevitable can be approached. Because remember, no one, not even you, gets out of here alive. Hello and a very warm welcome. Today we're talking pet loss and bereavement. The Blue Cross charity, originally set up in 1897 to help support working horses on the streets of London, and since has grown from strength to strength, helping tens of thousands of pets and their owners across the country. But just as we don't get out of here alive, neither do our beloved furry friends, and the grief that people experience can be compounded by lack of compassion and understanding around pet bereavement. So I am absolutely delighted to have with me today Diane James, who is the Pet Bereavement Support Services Manager at the Blue Cross charity, which offers telephone, email and web chat services free of charge to struggling bereaved pet owners. Hello, Diane, and welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So can you give us a bit of background of yourself and how you came to be doing the job that you're doing?
I can. It would probably take all day, so I'll cut this short. I joined the Blue Cross just under 7 years ago. I have to be honest, I'd never heard of the Pet Bereavement Support Service until then. And it's absolutely an amazing service that I work with. I came to join it after my dad sadly died. And for years, I'd worked in HR training, both in animal and human world. But for the last few years, I went back and did my postgrad in counselling. And I worked in a hospice and I dealt with people before, during and after loss. But then when my dad died, I thought, I can't do this with humans, because I was transferring, sadly, my feelings onto them. And it's not what I wanted to do. So I tapped into the computer a wish list. And I sometimes think everything happens for a reason. And this job. And I joined, when I joined all those years ago, we probably only had about 40 volunteers, just started to look at email. And if we fast forward to now, absolutely amazing transformation to the service. And I love every minute of it. So by luck, I got into the job of my dreams, which people find strange when we talk about bereavement, but it mixes animals with loss, which are both my topics that I enjoy.
Do you have any pets yourself?
I do, and I've had to send them out today because they can be very vocal. I have Chester, who is 10, and we call him my daughter's dog because we got him when she was 9. Because I felt that she was ready for him then. He's a Cavalier. He is a food vacuum. There at 100 miles an hour. And I have Hero, who is a rescue. He's a working Cocker Spaniel. So as you can imagine, is a bundle of, well, he's absolute joy, but hard work. And they've gone out today for a long walk because otherwise they'd be joining me on this.
Oh, it's a shame not to see them. Do you know, with the studios where I do this, they've got a lovely staffy called Lucky, she's crazy, and she literally just jumps at me and is so excited all the time. She's gorgeous. Have you always had animals?
Always, as a child growing up, but when I was younger, we tended to have cats. Gingers, and always called Ginny or Ginger or along those exciting lines. And then when I was about 11, we got the first dog. But because we moved around as a family, my dad was in the military, so it was difficult to have pets. So as soon as I got married, in came the dogs. And I've been married over 25 years now, so I'm on probably my third set of dogs. That sounds terrible, because I always tend to continually replace as sadly they go. A new character joins us, a new rescue, and I just think the amount of love they give us is phenomenal. To have never loved and got the love of a pet, people just don't know what they're missing.
They don't, do they? They really don't.
No.
So what do you feel are the main problems that pet owners face when they're grieving?
Gosh, I think that the problems people face are twofound. I think, firstly, other people not understanding the loss of a pet and how it can affect people. Sometimes because, as I said, they've never loved and lost. It can be people don't quite grasp how that loss can affect people. So that definitely will affect the person who's lost the pet. For example, a workplace or colleagues or friends not having the understanding is sometimes can be a real hindrance and not help with us grieving. But also, I think as a nation of animal lovers, we're quite reserved in this country. And the topic of death is something that until this past sad year, a lot of people tried to avoid. Sadly, it happens to every living thing, but as a nation, we tend to be reserved, dignified, not discuss it. And I think that's sometimes where a hindrance can be for people that need to grieve, human and animal. So sometimes as an animal lover, we're afraid to tell others how we feel, for fear to understand, or also because we may feel embarrassed, and there's no need to, because it's normal.
It is totally normal. And there are, I completely agree with people who lose people. The grief is really difficult for people to cope with. They get a little bit of support and help. But again, there's something... what is it? I think it's something only like recommended 5 days leave from work for somebody who's lost a family member. It's not compulsory. It's only, I think, it's now recently in the last few years gone through that you can get 2 weeks if you've lost a child, which is just nothing, is it?
It's not. And having worked in the world of HR and training previously, every company is different. So what they give can vary hugely. As far as animal leave goes, pet bereavement leave goes, I am obviously aware that businesses need to function, and it's an impossibility to obviously give paid pet bereavement leave. But animal charities or organisations like ourselves, we do get some. However, I just think if people could be more compassionate and understanding, it would go a long way to people. If you're able to ring in and truthfully say, I really don't think I can come to work today because my pet's died, and you felt that it would be received in the right way, would make a huge, huge difference to people.
It would, wouldn't it? Because bereavement, grief, it affects people in so many different ways, doesn't it? And I think the ability to be able to work with a fully functioning, fully present brain when you're grieving, it's all nigh on impossible. So to have the compassionate support from your employer is going to help tremendously with getting back to work sooner anyway, isn't it, I think? But I think, I just wanted a friend a few years ago now, her mum died, and I was looking after her, and apparently this other friend asked her how she was. This was a couple of months later, and she said, I'm not so good. And the other person said, why? And she said, well, I've just lost my mum. But that was 2 months ago. So we're dealing with that kind of attitude with people, never mind pets. Now, pets, basically they see us in the raw, don't they? Literally. All emotions, and they're there loving and supporting us no matter what. So to lose that kind of heart connection with another living being is it can rock people's worlds, can't it?
It can, because people just think pet as pet. What they then may not realise is it may be the last link to the partner that you lost, because you were pet together and they died and the memories were there. It may be it's your assistant's companion animal, and it's another link to a life just as much as it is to loving a pet. And with ours, my pet are part of our family. And, if my dog could talk, he could write a bestseller, because I tell him absolutely everything. And I look at him, sometimes I think, I know what you're thinking. You probably want me to shut up, Chester. But thick and thin. I've lost both parents in the time that I've owned Chester. And I would say that he has been a lifeline, because where we have the stiff upper lip and we think we protect people by not talking or telling them how we feel, that dog has had every element of my feelings told to him. When I lose him, even though I talk of him as being my daughter's dog, it's going to be a huge wrench. He's that connection, because I bought him when my mum was alive. We went and chose him together. Everything about him, and through thick and thin, he's been there. Hero is my husband's dog. My husband suffers with PTSD, and Hero is amazing. He picks up on anxiety. He gives him all, he's there. In point of fact, he can sense my husband's car coming down the road. If he's popped out and he hasn't taken him with him, the dog is by the door waiting, and he could be 2 miles away, because they have that close a connection.
Incredible.
So people need to realise that it's a lot deeper. And it's just not dogs, people's connection with cats, horses. People scoff when we talk about hamsters and fish dying, and say, how are people connected? As a child, sometimes your first pet is a goldfish or a hamster. Your first experience of death is that. I think if we can get it right from the start and make people understand the vital need that we have with our pets and the connection, we would go a long way to getting human loss, more understood and dealt with.
Yes, I've recently just written a book. Actually, I'm just waiting for the illustrations to be done, but it's a children's book around a little girl whose rabbit dies, and it's from the perspective of the rabbit, and looking down on how the little girl is looking after their body, because I think it would be so much more helpful, wouldn't it, if people had a little bit more support around the time when their animal does die. Because for many people, they have to make that absolutely heart-wrenching decision to put their pet to sleep, and I've had to do it a few times, and it's just absolutely. The grief I felt was phenomenal. The guilt, it's so much more complicated with pet bereavement, isn't it?
It is, and for a number of years, and this gets sort of a bit sciencey and technical now, we worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross grief cycle, because obviously a lot of people use her stages of grief. Been going since 1969, so lengthwise and time-wise, it's ancient. However, but it was human loss. So as a team, we thought there's lots of things that cross over and are on human and animal loss, but there are some really big differences, and guilt came out all the time. We get people comment that they feel like they've signed a death warrant, they've murdered their pet, and people think that's quite strong. However, it's how they feel because they've had to have their pet euthanized. When we work with people, we don't tend to use put to sleep, because it can affect a child, as in they think when I go to sleep I might not wake up. So we tend to use technical terms, but it's a huge thing, and the amount of guilt that people feel. What we've worked on for a number of years, as well as our grief cycle, is working with vets who have come on amazingly in the last few years as to working with, understanding with, and communicating to people about the loss, what to expect, allowing people to be there, to take in paw prints, fur clippings, explaining how it's going to be. Obviously, if it's something that happens tragically quite quickly, and it has to happen almost immediately, that's a different route. But we're finding now that with people with terminally ill animals, there's a lot more communication. The quality of life of the animal is discussed, because that's the hardest thing, I think, for all of us, is when we're with something day in, day out, although we notice slight changes, I don't think we want to ever admit that it's to let something we know we love go. Hard enough with a human being, and it's so different. But with our animals, I think that it is difficult. But I have to give credit to the veterinary world now, how much they've come on. And I think we've got rooms in vets now where they're purpose built. They take people. Ourselves, we have all literature that we supply to them about pre-loss, so that and different age groups as well, because each of us handles it differently. So I really think that as a nation and as a country, we lead the way in many things to do with pet bereavement, as we do with animal, themselves, as in a nation of animal lovers during, before and after.
And so with regards to how we deal with it at different age groups, what's your experience in that? How do we?
We often think that children won't be able to handle it as well as they can. And again, obviously, I'm not talking really, really tiny children, so under 2. But once you start getting to different age levels, younger children under 11, being honest and open with them is important. For example, I can remember in the past, and I have to tell you, I'm human, and I probably would have done this as a mother. When the goldfish dies, rather than explaining about the death, we would replace it so that the child would think that nothing had happened. However, it's really important that we do tell them, we do explain it, and in terms that we as a family or individuals understand. So some people may tell their child that the animal's gone to heaven, others may not believe that. But however, telling the truth about the loss is really important. And I'm using the word loss because normally I would use death or dying, but again, people don't tend to use that word because they shy away from it. As you work through, I think the most difficult age group can come with children's teenagers, because they tend to, it's at a stage where they're going from child to adult, and the dealing with it is a lot more is different. They tend to become quite insular and not accepting as much as a younger child may be. So with younger, where we can draw memory boxes, pictures, and work with them on the loss. Older children, whilst we can do that, it's really more difficult for them because they have an understanding, but it's difficult to accept. And then as you go through, even we call it seniors, seniors can handle it differently to other adult age groups, because they have more acceptance of dying, of how to deal with it, or again, how the loss affects them. We get an awful lot, sadly, of lonely people, not just during lockdown, but all the time, where they have little contact with others, or they may live on their own, have little contact with their families. So the loss affects them in a different way. So accept it, we tend to find that they need our support longer, and for longer periods of time, even on the phone, and for the length of time they call us or contact us, because it's a support of not only loss but for their loneliness too.
And what are your thoughts on people who say to pet owners, you just need to go and get another dog or another cat or whatever? Because many people hear that, don't they? And
they do. And I think for those that have very little understanding about the loss of a pet, they feel that it's a comforting thing to say, not realising that it's far from it. All of us are different, and you often hear, whether it be human or animal, we grieve in different ways and how we are. First of all, it's totally normal that we're all different, but the same as it can be somebody goes the next day and gets another pet, to somebody who feels they never can because they feel that it's a guilt of not honouring the loss of the one that they loved and lost, to other people who it might take a long time, but eventually they do. So the same way, and I can't sort of compare it to it, but I've had friends whose parents have died and the other parent has married quite quickly, or someone else might, for example, never marry because they love that person so much. What's right for everyone is right for them. I think when somebody says to you, you can go and get another one, whilst they think they're saying the right thing for them, it's not necessarily the right thing for each individual family. But I would say, as a unit, if you are a family member of a family unit, talk to each other. The worst thing in the world is somebody rushes out and gets something thinking they're going to surprise you and make you happy and hasn't consulted the whole group. Sometimes can, have an adverse effect on not just the family, but the pet they bring in.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's our ability, I think, as a culture to be able to sit comfortably with discomfort. Comfortably discomfortable. Uncomfortable, that's the word. I need my second coffee today. But yes, it's that a lot of people say things that are well intended, aren't they? Well meaning, because they want to make that person feel better. But there is no making that person feel better, that it's okay that they're feeling the way they do. They have to feel that way. And actually just to listen and be there and make cups of tea is enough, isn't it? And to say, I don't know what to say. I know you're hurting, but I'm here.
That applies human and animal. People often say that, when they've lost a loved one, human or animal, how people avoid them. And sometimes it's not because they don't care. It's because they really, really don't know what to do or say. And it is okay to say nothing and to just be there for them and let them know that you're there. And often people will just want you to listen. And talk about things, and you won't need to say anything because that's what they want to do, or cry, or just show their emotion. Also, all the years I've trained, because we often train, well, not often, we train lots of veterinary and animal organisations. I have to say to people, if you do make the mistake of saying the wrong thing, that's okay, because you're human. People will often say, oh, it had a good life. Well, we know it had a good life, it had a good age, but we know that, but it doesn't make it easy. But for us, we will say those things because we're uncertain as human beings what to say. You are right. It's okay to say nothing, and it's okay sometimes to make that mistake as well.
Yes, and that's key, isn't it? Actually, I think it's really, really important, because some people will be so frightened of saying the wrong thing that they will just not say anything at all and avoid and go on the other side of the street. And people can feel incredibly, even so lonely and isolated in their grief, especially with pet loss. So grief doesn't just affect owners when an animal dies. So there are many reasons why an owner can no longer be with that animal, such as loss of home, income, health, losing a pet, or having it stolen. So what are the complexities of this type of grief?
Gosh, this is huge. And at the moment, out of all of those things, probably the first one I would talk about is stolen, because the number of animals that are being stolen at the moment is probably the worst we've ever known it as a country. Lots of reasons, be it resale, for breeding, or even baiting. However, it's huge. Firstly, the effect on the person when their pet is stolen is massive. It's devastating enough when you lose a pet through natural death, but when your pet is stolen, it's what we call unresolved. And the reason it's unresolved grief is because you have no idea what's happened. Your mind can go into overdrive. You have no closure as such, because you have no idea what's happened. Will you ever see the small minority that ever returned is probably only about 15% of stolen dogs, if that get returned.
Really?
Hearing more and more that thankfully it's now being treated more seriously than ever by the police. And as a charity, we fought for a long time to have theft recognised as more than just a mobile phone being stolen. And it's the realisation of, it's just not the cost in money to actually buy a pet, it's the cost in lost emotion and your devastation. So that unresolved grief is a really difficult one for people to live with and work with. And all the other losses there, where we talk about rehoming, again, rehoming, whether it be for illness or financial, or you're unable to take the pet to your new home. For example, if you're moving into care, you can't always take your pet, sadly. Again, that is not so much unresolved because it's going to be rehomed. It's the guilt. It's that it becomes compounded because you'll have all those emotions that People feel you failed. And do you know something? You haven't. Shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel like you failed. It's really, really tough on you and really hard. But as an animal lover and an owner, you've had to do something for the right reason. But it doesn't always make it feel any better for us knowing that. So it does. It's a really complicated thing for people. And I would say, you know, when you talk lost and stolen, unresolved is huge. There's lots of other things as well with people whereby, nowadays that's financial is becoming huge, not only with having to rehome, but even keeping them, but being able to feed and treat them. I don't think people quite, people often say, well, you shouldn't have an animal if you can't, but we never know a person's full circumstances and should never judge. Impartiality is something that we work with as a service and as a charity. And I think as human beings, sometimes you forget that kindness. So losing a pet through any of those areas is huge. There are things that you can do, for example, with when a pet's stolen or you've lost your pet and they sadly never return, you'll always have that little ache in your heart because of the not knowing. There are little things that we do, you can set up a memorial area. You can write, and this is something that human and animal we always train in, is write how you feel, your thoughts, what you want to say, so that you can actually have some type of closure in one way, because although you'll never get to say it, you've said it on paper. And things, there are little things, and it does help people. But one thing, and it's not a plug for what I do, but talking, calling our service. If you feel you can't talk, emailing. With younger and you don't want to email or talk, we've now got web chat. Because I sometimes think people see the word bereavement on our title and think it's just death. And it's not, it's any type of loss. So any of those you just talked about, be it theft, lost, need to rehome, pre-euthanasia, because obviously that's a real shock. If somebody tells you your pet is terminally ill, you need to talk to someone. It's there. And, we're open every day of the year, 8:30 to 8:30. Even Christmas Day, the ladies and gents are all running to help where I'm running the other way.
A well-earned rest.
But do you know something? My phone is never off. My husband goes mad. But have it, because there's always, if somebody needs me, I'm there. But, we have a real mixture of people call, all ages, all losses, or loss. And I just wish people knew that there were services like this to support them that were free. And just the support itself can help you through your loss.
Just to be struggling with bereavement of any of those situations, and then to go and see your doctor, go and see a counsellor, and but again, it comes to that real kind of sometimes. Just embarrassment and sometimes even shame that people feel the depths and strength of their emotions for when their pet dies. So to know that there are people like you who completely get it on such a deep level, I would imagine that for people who call, it is like people who find you, it's like an absolute thank God, yes.
It is. And for a long, long time, I thought what an amazing service and how underutilized it was. So my aim for the last few years was to work with people academically to get credibility, which is important. But important as well was for the medical profession who, I would say they're overworked is an understatement. But when you go to your GP, first of all, is to get into your GP and then find out, sadly, that the wait time for counselling is huge. So what's happened in the last few years and recently is that the Royal College of GPs have recognised that people do need us and we are there. And that to me was like a light bulb going on. It was amazing that they finally realised that we can help support where it isn't necessarily professional counselling people need. It's support through their loss with people who understand them. And the GPs now have picked up on this, and it's just a case of us now getting people out there to realise that we're here. And GPs are utilising us more. Vets use us all the time.
Good.
To recommend and to signpost to them. But the medical profession now have realised the impact this has on their patients.
That's amazing.
Well
done, you.
And I don't say well done at the Royal College, but it's people like that whose backing we need.
Yeah.
We also the other charities like Samaritan's example, Cruise. We all signpost between each other. Silver Line for people who really need a befriender for loneliness. Work back and forth, and it's great. Absolutely. We also offer something as well that we work with for care homes and for things like Marie Curie, etc., where if you have a pet and you sadly you will your pet will outlive you, which can happen. So that's a really big thing, and it's a charity. For years we've run something where we will take the pet into our care and rehome that pet if somebody sadly dies. And it's something that a lot of charities have now started to do, but we kept it quite quiet when we started it because it was important we got it right. And so with us, it's called Pet Peace of Mind. And it's peace of mind for you that because that's another big thing. It's not only the death of the animal, it's our death that will affect the animal as well.
Yes.
And so it's what we call, I suppose we call it, we do it from start to finish within our charity, from the minute the animal's born to the minute an animal dies, including working with the people.
Which is just so, so important. And so today's meaning of life is from my gorgeous nephew, Rufus, lover of all things retro. Rufus, what's the meaning of life to you?
Being into cool retro stuff.
And?
Doctor Who.
So that's the end of part 1. Don't forget to join us next week for part 2. I would like to say a very big thank you for being brave enough to dare to listen to a podcast that talks about something we, as a nation, tend to prefer. Doesn't exist, doesn't apply to our lives. But no, it does. No one gets out of here alive. And being more aware and engaged helps us all to have a more positive experience when the time does come to either us or our family, friends and pets. If you'd like to subscribe, please visit www.hollylyon-hawk.com.